Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Journey. I'm your host, Tim Durkin, and this is Waynesburg's only faith-based show. We've got an exciting episode for you today that dives into the Coalition for Christian Outreach group here on campus. I'll be interviewing two people who know a lot about the program, those being Gordon Truesdale and Chuck Baily. As always, at the end of the show, I'll be giving a personal word of encouragement to help get you through the week. So sit back and relax. You're watching The Journey.
Have you ever been to the Baily Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies, like Frozen, or TV shows, like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing, though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Baily Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Welcome back. Joining me right now is Gordon Truesdale, a resident director for Martin Hall on campus, but also a man who is heavily involved with the Christian ministry at Waynesburg. Gordon, it's great to have you on.
Great to be here. Happy to be here. Thank you.
So my first question for you is, what is the Coalition for Christian Outreach?
Yeah, so the Coalition for Christian Outreach, or the CCO, is what's known as a parachurch ministry organization. That means that we partner with local churches to reach certain campuses. And so, like, one of our coworkers, Becky Giuliano, she's partnered with First Presbyterian Church in efforts to reach students on Waynesburg's campus. My partnership is with the university, which is a little bit different of a partnership, but so I'm partnered with the school to come here to be a campus minister, but the role that I fill, like, for the university is as a resident director, so I kind of do two jobs in one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Cool.
how far do you think the program sort of reaches?
Do you mean like on this campus or nationwide?
So whenever I looked into this last night, it seemed more of like a local thing, like sort of based in Pittsburgh. So sort of as like a regional thing. How far is the reach?
Yeah, I would say because the CCO started in Pittsburgh, that's mainly where you see a lot of CCO co-workers or CCO staff. And so those people work a lot in Western PA, but we have staff that are in Eastern PA, we have staff that are in Ohio, we have staff that are all the way out in California, and so we have a bit of a nationwide reach, what I would say.
Okay. So how did CCO make it to Waynesburg?
I think that'll be a better question for the next guy that you're interviewing, Chuck, seeing as how he was the first CCO staff person here.
Oh, really?
I believe so. Yeah, Chuck was the first person here, and so he was an RD in Martin, and he was sharing the gospel with students way back whenever Chuck was in college. I don't know when that was. But Chuck kind of calls us the bookend, so him being the first CCO resident director here, and then I think I'm the 70th or 71st staff member here at Waynesburg. So yeah, Waynesburg has a really long relationship with the CCO.
So does CCO exclusively deal with colleges, or does it go to high schools or maybe organizations outside of the educational sphere?
No. So yeah, we actually exclusively work with colleges. We don't work with high schools and stuff like that. And so I would say mission would be we look at colleges and we look at college students and we see that only 2% of college students are hearing the gospel or having the gospel shared with them. And so we see college students as an unreached people that just aren't hearing about the gospel, that aren't hearing about Jesus. And so our mission, our goal is to share the gospel with students on college campuses, to get them plugged in with their local church and to give them a vision of what it looks like to live their entire lives for Christ. That's kind of our mission, gospel, church vision. So yeah, we mainly exclusively work with college students.
Okay. So what made you want to join CCO in the first place? Or like, where did you first hear of it?
Yeah, I didn't want to join the CCO and when I was first in college. And so I went to Edinburgh University. Unfortunately, it's now Penn West. We're not going to talk about that. But I had a campus minister there by the name of Sandy. I was someone that I didn't grow up in the church, but I came to know Christ my freshman year in college. And so Sandy was a big part of the time after that. She taught me a lot about who Jesus is, the person that he is, how he cares and loves for me. She taught me a lot about how to read the Bible, and then how to share the love of Christ with other people. And yeah, I believe my sophomore year, she had said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if you came on staff with me and worked for the CCO?" And that was the absolute last thing that I wanted to do. I went to Edinburgh to be a physical therapist, and so that was the plan. I was going to go do that, and then I was going to go get my master's. I was going to go work at a clinic, work with athletes, stuff like that. The Lord had different plans, and so year after year, I just kind of kept feeling this pressure by the Lord that physical therapy wasn't going to be what I was going to do. Then my senior year rolled around. Sandy just asked me, she was like, just interview for the job. And so I interviewed for a fellows position, which is kind of like a ministry intern position with the CCO. And so I interviewed. I remember doing well on that interview. I remember not wanting to do well, but doing well in spite of myself. And then, I got hired by the CCO in May of 2019. I've been on staff since then.
Okay, so sort of speaking about recruitment and stuff like that, how do you get new students to join?
How do you get new students to join? That's a good question. We usually look for students that are involved in the ministry. And so at a lot of CCO campuses, there's either a large group meeting or staff members are discipling students. And so once those students are in their senior year, or maybe even before, this CCO staff member will talk to them about the fellows program. And so that's where, as a fellow, you would go to a campus where there's already an established ministry, and you would work with that staff member. You would work alongside them. You would try and bring new students into the ministry, and kind of really get a taste of what being a campus minister is like. And then after that year of doing that, you would decide whether it was just a one-year kind of thing, or if ministry is a lifelong thing, something that you want to pursue for the rest of your life. And so I would say the main way that we do that, or get students involved, would be through discipleship and then through the fellows program. That's how we get students on staff.
So you mentioned earlier how you said less than 2% of college students hear the gospel and hear the word.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go about reaching people who are outside of the campus ministry?
I would say you just have to go where students are, meet them where they're at. I know when I was at Allegheny, we would spend, that's where I did my fellows year, we would spend a lot of time just walking around the cafeteria, eating there, hanging out in the student center, just trying to meet students. And so, I think we tried to make a priority of spending time with students in the spaces that they're already at, And so trying to just build a relationship with them first, not immediately trying to get them to come to this ministry thing or come to this Bible study, but hey, here I am, I'm Gordon, I'm a person, let's talk, let's get to know each other, let me know about who you are, what's your experience at this university, and then maybe once that rapport is built, let me tell you about who Jesus is. And so, yeah, I would say getting students that aren't involved in the ministry, just go where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So sort of speaking in the same line as building and growing relationships, I heard that you're going to be going on a fall retreat soon. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the fall retreat is something I believe we started a few years ago. Unfortunately, we had to stop because of COVID. I believe it's out in Ligonier. So we go out to the campground out there. We eat meals together, but then there's a schedule of speakers, and so someone will speak in the morning, someone will speak at night, and then I think there may be a speaker in the middle or two over that weekend. And so, yeah, it's a time for students to fellowship together, to share meals together from different universities. There's a lot of fun stuff to do at Ligonier, and so I remember one year I think we played laser tag, we played dodgeball, stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think it's a nice opportunity to get students off of their campus, away for a weekend, getting around some other college students that love Jesus or maybe are curious and asking questions and still seeking. And then they get the opportunity to hear the gospel shared, to hear the scriptures shared with them.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Gordon. I appreciate it. When we come back, we'll be talking to another member of the CCO with Chuck Baily. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Journey.
This is producer Caleb Yager, and you are watching The Buzz.
Welcome back to The Journey. We just got done speaking with Gordon about the Coalition for Christian Outreach, but now we have another guest to speak about the same topic. Chuck Baily, it's great to have you.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's good to be here.
So I'll start out with the same question I asked Gordon. What is the CCO in your own words?
The CCO, as he said, was the Coalition for Christian Outreach. It's a college-based ministry which started in Pittsburgh in 1971.
So how'd you get your start in this program?
I was a senior at IUP, and the CCO started in the fall of 1971, and started with 3 staff. One went to Worcester, one went to Allegheny, and the third came to IUP, to the church I was taking my girlfriend to. And his name was Dave Deal, and he started a fraternity sorority Bible study, which I didn't think was really going to go anywhere. I was wrong. It went from 4 to 40 in one semester. So that was my experience as a senior. And then my hometown's Waynesburg, so I came back to work in my family insurance and real estate business. My wife taught junior high, and I kept in touch with all these guys. And then in 1973, a year later, I became the resident director in Martin Hall.
Oh, so you're just like Gordon in that respect.
That's why he said we were bookends. We truly are bookends. And he is staff number 70. And of those 70, most of them have worked here as resident directors. We've had a couple athletic coaches as their part-time position. Other people worked in student services. And we even had one start the Upward Bound program here that used to run for about 10 years in the late 70s and early 80s.
So whenever I was talking to Gordon earlier, he told me that you know a lot about the history about CCO. So could you just give a brief overview of that, of how they got to Waynesburg?
Yeah, it was. It's kind of a funny story. In the early 70s, all the residence hall directors here were retired women, dorm moms, And if you know anything about the 60s, at the end of the 60s, early 70s were turbulent times, not only in the culture, but also in the residence halls. And some of the problems in the residence halls were getting a little bit too tough for the, we'll just go with Martin Hall, for that little grandmother type to walk up on the 5th floor Martin Hall and stop a fight or get the keg out of the residence hall, whatever. So the dean of students at the time was Reverend Bob Kahn, and we were teaching his daughter in our Sunday school class, got to know him, and then he was lamenting that they needed to do something. And the CCO at that point had 8 staff in its second year, and I mentioned that I might be interested in just talking more about that. I brought the CCO leadership down here with Bob Kahn. We talked back and forth and created the first residence hall director position in the CCO. That was in 1973 in the fall, and Shirley and I were the first. And in 1977, I just know because there were 74 staff and 37 of them were resident directors within the CCO. So it became the most popular, next to working in a church, the most popular kind of a co-op relationship within the organization.
So being a resident director, that's sort of your personal life, and then being part of CCO is obviously your religious life. So do you see the two overlap a lot?
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the CCO's, the password for our staff was 0 dualisms early on. So to get on the website and get into the staff section, you had to type in 0 dualisms. We don't, secular and sacred, compartmentalized Christianity is, that's kind of something that we challenged, even at the root. It's a core value that you live your Christian life everywhere. It's like glasses. You put these glasses on and it's the way you see the world. So yeah, my residence hall director position didn't conflict at all. And occasionally there were some discipline problems. We had 4 or 5% of the students just decided, they were mostly freshmen, 182 freshmen at Martin Hall my first year. And there were those challenges, but I just felt like I was there to minister to students and serve students inside the classroom. When my wife would correct papers, we had no word processing back then, so she was the final editor of most term papers. She handled the counseling with the girlfriend problems. I played some intramural sports and hung out with students. We led some Bible studies on campus and just challenged students with who was Jesus and what did the gospel mean, what were the implications of the gospel. And that's pretty much what we did for 3 years.
So you're talking a lot about the CCO work that you do here on campus. Whenever you go somewhere else, whether it just be on vacation or on a business trip, do you take CCO with you?
No, actually the CCO doesn't, we don't start groups in the name of the CCO. There's other college ministries called InterVarsity, Navigators, Campus Crusade for Christ, which is now Cru. We kind of are underground. In addition to Gordon saying we were a parachurch ministry, we don't really hold out the name CCO. We try to work within the context of where we are, whether it's other campus ministries that are already existing on a campus or through the local church. So yeah, we don't really hold out the CCO as something that you belong to or need to join, although we do look for staff. As Gordon mentioned, you're looking for students to recruit that maybe want to do ministry is something as a part of their life over the next few years after college.
So just sort of a general question, what would you say is the greatest strength of the CCO?
That's a great question, and I think uniquely among college ministries, the CCO tries to help students integrate faith and vocation and calling. Waynesburg Faith, Service, and Learning is our hallmark here. And I would say we tie into that really well because faith, calling, and vocation, you don't have to be a missionary to go to Africa. You don't have to be a minister to be a full-time Christian. Everybody's an ambassador. Everybody, if you're a follower of Christ, like I said, it's the way you see the world and the way you perform whatever calling, whether it's a doctor, attorney, a housewife, in the sciences, in business. What does it mean what are the implications of your faith in that particular vocation? So I think our hallmark is helping students discover that, and then we equip them to do that well.
So whenever I was doing some research last night, because admittedly I hadn't really heard of the CCO, I saw right there on the front page that there was a new president sworn in recently. So have you met him? Have any thoughts on him?
York Moore, we dragged him down to Waynesburg about 4 weeks ago. He lives just north of Detroit in Dearborn, and so he came down on my son's deck, and we talked for about 2 hours. And he was a vice president for InterVarsity, which was another national college ministry. He's got 517,000 followers on TikTok. So he's a dynamic presence. In fact, we just had a retreat. He spoke at Slippery Rock 2 weekends ago. We had about 15 students go up as a part of about maybe 140 students. And CCO is now 50 years old, the fall of 71 till now. And so we've started our second 50 years, and I think we've got some great leadership, and it'll be interesting to see what God does over the next 50 years. Although I won't be around for all of that, but I hope to be around for a few just to see how this all plays out.
So with the new president and everything, usually with that comes change. So what do you think is next for the program?
Well, I think we do the integration of faith, learning, and calling well, but I think we've slipped a little bit on the term evangelism, which is just confronting people with, okay, who was Jesus? And the 4 years the reason I love the CCO is the 4 years you're in college is when you're exploring all kinds of things. When you look back at yourself as a junior in high school, you're tied to that person, your DNA is the same, but in these 4 years here, you're learning, you're growing, and asking questions, getting answers in terms of purpose and life. And we want the gospel of Jesus Christ to be part of that discovery process. So I think York Moore that's one of his core commitments as an individual, and I know he's going to bring a higher priority to that for the CCO in general.
Well, thank you very much, Chuck, for coming on the show. You had a lot of great information. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this segment. When we come back, I'll have my word of encouragement right here on The Journey.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back to The Journey. There's been a lot of change happening recently. Summer switched to fall, September is just about ready to move to October, and midterms are fast approaching, causing changes to your schedule. Feels like the entire semester has been moving even faster this year than usual. It feels like only yesterday that I was packing my bags for Waynesburg. Change, while it can be scary for some of us, is ultimately a good thing most of the time. Yet, change is always, inevitably, loss. We lose summer to get fall. We lose our summer break to come to school. To put it simply, I lost free time to be here. In that way, I think it's important to remember that loss is not always a bad thing. It's okay to change, so it's okay to lose sometimes. I say all this to say that there is one thing in our lives that shouldn't change: our faith. We chose to walk this path, and we shouldn't deviate from it. To change is to lose, and I don't want to lose my faith. Even as you naturally change as a person, grow in the way that God intended, your belief in Him should remain unbroken. Psalm chapter 62, verse 5 says, "Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from Him." Always know that God is the one thing in your life that won't change. Even if your life is a whirlwind right now, God is the rock you can hold on to for comfort and strength. As 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 17 says, "But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, so that through me the proclamation might be fully accomplished, and that all the Gentiles might hear. And I was rescued out of the lion's mouth." God will be there with you through the hard times, and He will deliver you. All you have to do is ask. Trust in Him, even through the times of change and of loss. I wish everyone has a fantastic week, And thank you to everyone who made this episode possible. You can catch all current and future episodes of The Journey on the official WCTV YouTube channel. Good night, and God bless.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.